Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Good morning, one and all. Welcome to a Thursday morning due edition of the Due Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular once again.
Hola!
Hola. Hey, what do you think? I just had a thought this morning. What do you think was the more significant invention? Because everybody says the wheel was the big one, right? And no doubt the wheel was important, right?
Yeah, it was important.
But when you think about it, the cup was also a very important invention. Was it not? I mean, the cup is probably just as consequential as the wheel. I mean, think of how sweet that must have been to not have to schlep back and forth to the river every time you want to cup some water with your hands and drink. To invent a little cup so you could scoop it out of the river and take it with you. I mean, that is life-changing. I think that's more life-changing than the wheel. The cup. What do you think? Vote in the chat. Cup or wheel?
My guess is that cups as such just kind of naturally happened because you would have just grabbed things in nature that are shaped like that.
What's shaped like that in nature?
Water.
What are you talking about? What is shaped like that in nature?
Broken coconut, right? You would have started with things in nature, certain stones that have a dip in it. You would have started that way, and then they developed ceramics.
There are no stones with dips in it. Broken coconut I buy. There's not
have
a
you
stone
ever,
with a dip
all right,
in it.
There's a man who's afraid to cross the border into Connecticut. I promise you, if you actually go in the woods, you can find a lot of things that nature makes that naturally kind of have a well
like
in it.
Bowl
and that you can yet that have that kind of a property. Sure. Like unlike the wheel, I would say first they used things that naturally were shaped like that anyway before they started making their own. You know what's interesting? The Aztecs never developed the wheel, and yet they had like toy carts that kind of indicated a wheel, but they never developed the wheel.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing wheel. So far, the audience is not with me. They think wheel.
They're not with you.
Cup. Not with you. I think the cup is more. It more affects the daily life back then. So being able to take water with you somewhere, that's huge. That's major. I mean, the wheel is major too. That's why it's a question. That's why I think they're neck and neck. That's why it's a difficult question. Maker? Yeah, the Keurig or the wheel? What is the more consequential invention? The wheel or the Keurig K-Cup?
The K-Cup sucks. I don't know why the fuck people use that shit. That's like, what are you, just too lazy to actually brew coffee?
Yeah, it's expensive and it takes a long time. Exactly.
And it's not as good as brewed coffee.
That's true. It is really not as good. You're right about that.
I know, because there's a Keurig here, and I ate it.
There you go.
I just walked to the bagel shop to get coffee.
Yeah. K-Cups, I was not a fan. I don't have one. Folks, we got to give a little shout out to our friend Jose Vega, who is running for Congress. He is gearing up to start his volunteer drive for signature gathering. So you can go to votevega.nyc and click that volunteer tab if you are in or around New York City and you want to pound the pavement with our friend Jose and fill out the form. And he'll get in touch with you. He asked us to plug that, and we're, of course, happy to do that because he's looking to get his campaign team together. So that's votevega.nyc. And you can click the donate tab if you'd like to as well. But right now he's making a push for on-the-ground volunteers. So if you go to votevega.nyc, hit that volunteer tab, fill out the information, and you'll be hearing from the NSA shortly after. That is that's the pitch there.
He's a plant. He's a plant. Not like a little maiden in the morning.
Nothing like a little maiden in the morning. We got some Dolly Parton, too. People have been singing along to that as we go. All right. Let's see here.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen. Pour myself a cup of ambition.
You know what? I forgot to load into the soundboard, and it would have been absolutely perfect for the Mitch McConnell segment, is the Morning Joe. They've surrendered to the communists.
Yeah.
I realized it as soon as we started the countdown. I'm like, oh, man, I meant to upload that, and I just forgot. But we'll have that for next time. But this would have been a good occasion for that because we are going to cover that later on in the program. We are without Jake today, but I am fielding Rumble rants to the best of my ability here. We have 747 strong in the YouTube chat, 420 over on Rumble, 423 it says on my phone. So thank you very much for being here, everybody. Please hit that like button. Let's juice the algorithm in the morning. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. Hit that follow button over on Rumble. All right, let's get to the news of the day. The Michigan primary results are going to be the topic of a couple of segments this morning. But first, I want to draw your focus to the third place ballot line there. Marianne Williamson, despite having suspended her campaign, placed third ahead of Dean Phillips, who actually finished last. And because of that, she apparently felt compelled to re-enter the race and unsuspend her campaign.
The competition for the 12 voters that made up that 0.3% was fierce.
Yes, it was fierce, and she won. And so she's got big momentum now, as we know. Here's Marianne Williamson taking to Twitter, announcing she is back in.
I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign.
As of today, I am canceling my appearance as the tarot card reader at the Santa Barbara Renaissance Festival because I am re-entering the presidential race.
I don't want to disappoint anyone who's already made an appointment. So if you've made an appointment, please email my assistant.
Please email my assistant. If we hear from you within 48 hours, we'll give you a full refund.
And I will sense your aura from a distance.
Yes, right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, here we go.
Hey, I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race. But something so much more important than the horse race is at stake here.
We were running out of content.
We must respond.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a fascist standing at the door. Everybody's all upset about it. Well, we should be upset about it. But we're not going to defeat the fascist by what?
I'm upset about the fascist who's in the door.
He says, let's finish the job. Well, I hope you realize we're talking about millions of voters for whom they can't even survive unless they work at 2 or 3 jobs. What is he saying beyond, the economy is really doing well? Are you kidding me? For whom? It's doing well for 20% of us, and that's to be celebrated. But that 20% is on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic
is it great news? I don't think it's great news that the 20%
Well, it's great news for her because she's in the 20%.
She's in the 20%, indeed. And that's great for them. I'm happy for them.
39% of the American people report that they are regularly skipping meals in order to pay their rent. Over half of bankruptcies come from medical debt 1 in 4 Americans carry. We're now living at a time where economic anxiety is experienced by the majority of people living paycheck to paycheck, the minimum wage not having been raised, and increasing militarism. What's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. We, the people, basically don't own this country right now. Abraham Lincoln said that
really?
People died in the Civil War for the
really?
You think? So that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people would not perish from the earth. It's perishing now. And on our watch.
Yes, and I'm the one who can stop it by re-entering the presidential race on the strength of my 3% showing in the Michigan primary. I'm sorry. She is such an unbelievable narcissist. And, this is what I tried to communicate to her face to face. I said, no one's telling you to give up and keep your mouth shut and not speak out. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Be an activist.
Right. The way these people think, the way these rich people think is it has to be me, right? The answer has to lie within me and myself. The narcissism to think that you are equipped to actually change the direction of this country by re-entering a primary where your top showing now, in terms of raw vote, was this Michigan primary, where what did you get? You got 22,000 votes. That's good for 3%. Like, it's over and done so obviously. And, she would say, well, nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is running against Joe Biden, so somebody has to do it. No, nobody has to do it. If it's lost, it's lost. And don't call me a cynic for saying that. You're a grifter for not acknowledging that. You're a grifter for giving people false hope and soliciting donations where they could otherwise go to mutual aid that would help alleviate some of the problems you're talking about. Food insecurity, housing insecurity, medical debt. Like, the answer is not you. The answer doesn't always have to be you. That's the way all these rich and famous people think. And people in office and all these people in power, that's why senators don't retire. They clutch on to the idea that they have to be the ones in charge. They have to be the ones to change course and steer the ship in the right direction.
Well, they also get off on the perks, the platform, the power,
Right.
the status. For Marianne, if she were to use her platform just to direct people to donate to causes, nobody would have a bad word to say about her.
No, not at all.
Maybe people she's thrown a Nokia at might
Right.
still hold a grudge. But for the most part, people would be like, good, she's doing good work. This is basically saying, well, if nobody else is going to play in the rigged casino, I guess I have to.
Right.
And I guess I have to lead other people to come play this rigged game. Why? Why? That doesn't demonstrate that you should be leading. It demonstrates that you're uniquely disqualified by demonstrating such a lack of insight, such a lack of seriousness, such a lack of analytical capabilities. You're the last person who should be directing any left movement.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's just crazy. And, now she's getting back in. Phillips is staying in. They're of the opinion that, if Biden is forced to withdraw, that they're going to be in some kind of position.
The delegates would never pick either one of you.
No,
they're going to grab an insider in good standing, probably Gavin Newsom.
Right. And that's why Biden is staying in at least until Super Tuesday, which I believe is next week. Is Super Tuesday next week or the week after? I think it's next week. Once that day comes, Biden will have secured 50% plus, after which point the voters are irrelevant. The voters are irrelevant past that point. Once Biden clinches that 50% threshold, it is now in the delegates' hands, meaning whoever volunteered to vote for Joe Biden at the DNC in Chicago, they are the ones who control who becomes the nominee past Super Tuesday. And if it is not Biden, those delegates will be instructed to pick a certain other candidate at the DNC. Probably Newsom. Outside chance it's Whitmer, but it's almost certainly going to be Newsom if they go that road. It's not going to be Dean Phillips. It's not going to be Marianne Williamson. And the voters are not going to be in a position to do anything about it. That's why Biden is staying in as long as he is.
Nor are there any voters who are going to be clamoring for it to be Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson.
No, they're not getting any votes. They're getting hardly any votes.
They're not even going to get any pressure in that direction. Like, what? Oh, yeah, no, a bunch of insiders at the Democratic Party are going to sit down and pick the people who, against orders from the DNC, decided to challenge their doddering incumbent president that they're desperately trying to pretend is not losing his mind. Yeah, they're going to pick you guys because they have a long history of warming up to people who cross them.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine there are protests for Marianne outside the DNC and you, Kit, and Nick get to go interview them in Chicago.
Oh, mane padme home.
Yeah, right, exactly. That would be fun. That would be fun, indeed. Hobbs 45, thanks for the $12. I showed up at the Rucker so I could hoop in my new fresh trumps. Girls know I'm fly. Thank you, Hobbs. Caves of Chaos 123. Trump removed from primary ballot in Illinois like he stands a chance in the general. I now have to write Trump in as a protest. Sheesh. Yeah, we heard about that last night. By the way, if you are not a patron, you missed the banger last night. That was a great Patreon show last night. You could watch the replay if you sign up, patreon.com/DoDissidents. But yeah, Winnetou Livre, our patron, brought that to our attention as we went on the air last night. That ruling, I guess, is still technically valid because the Supreme Court has not ruled in the Colorado case yet. But once the Supreme Court shuts down the Colorado ballot removal, I'm assuming that will invalidate this as well. So I don't think this is really much of an obstacle to him.
And if you become a patron, we also had a very unexpected appearance from Mr. Glass of the Unbreakable franchise.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
He explained his equivocation on the morality of a certain mustachioed leader that you're probably familiar with. So that alone is worth becoming a patron if you haven't already.
Yeah. Lita Gray, thanks for the $5. Ugly American Vibes, Russell. R.E. Critique of British Cuisine and Women Considered Food U.S. is known for at obesity.
Listen, I was just repeating what I was told. All right. I didn't make that up. I'm not nearly clever enough to have made that up. Somebody, but actually more than one person quoted that at me while I was there. British people, not Americans. British people said that to me.
Yeah. Pickle the Pirate, thanks for the $2. Supporter stream was a blast last night. Thanks, fellas. Thank you, Pickle the Pirate. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's go. We have a Rumble rain here. I noticed your Rumble chat has been getting more spam bots with suspicious links, but I think everyone here is smart enough not to click on them. Might need a morning moderator. Yeah, we could. I don't know how to make someone a moderator on Rumble. I don't know if that's even a thing. I don't know if we're.
I think once you get past a certain level, you start getting a lot of that. Like on my X, I never used to get the spam bots. Check out my profile pic. I started getting it once I got above like 4,000 followers. All of a sudden, I started getting those.
Interesting. All right, let's move on here. Folks, obviously Tuesday was the Michigan primary, so we're going to put this up on the screen. Once again, Joe Biden finishing obviously far and away the winner with 81% of the vote, but with 13.2% of the vote and over 100,000 raw votes, the uncommitted did have a strong showing. Now, Joe Biden won the 2020 general count in Michigan by about 154,000 votes. So I would have liked to have seen this rank at more close to the 150,000 vote number. But 100 is still an impressive showing, no doubt. And it was impressive enough to cause some cope in the liberal media outlets. So let's first go to MSNBC, where Claire McCaskill chimed in on the results of this.
Also, Chris, we have to remember, I mean, let's look at the Ann Arbor numbers. Joe Biden didn't win Ann Arbor. Bernie Sanders
or as we
won
call
Ann
it around
Arbor.
here,
Yeah. So,
the witch from Hansel and Gretel.
Yes, exactly.
but also, Chris, we have to remember, I mean, let's look at the Ann Arbor numbers. Joe Biden didn't win Ann Arbor. Bernie Sanders won Ann Arbor.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So some of these areas have never been Biden country.
Yeah,
they have been really many more people that were further left and didn't like the idea of a moderate carrying the flag of our party.
Yeah.
If you're the
so now all of a sudden it's not anything to worry about that the progressives and the Bernie people didn't fall in line behind Joe Biden. Now all of a sudden, well, hey, look, they're not our people anyway. In 2016, when they lost Michigan, oh my God, it was Jill Stein's fault. Those Bernie people defected to Jill Stein. How dare they? How dare they? Now it's primary. Hey, you know, look, I mean, they're not really our voters anyway. Could that be because they trust that some of them will fall in line, since some of this uncommitted campaign was organized by the likes of like Rashida Tlaib and Michael Moore, who are still going to encourage people to vote blue in November. But of course, the people who started this uncommitted campaign were the abandoned Biden people. Those were Arab and Muslim leaders in Michigan who are determined to see this strategy through to the general election. So we'll see. Maybe they'll be singing a different tune come then, but let's play the rest of this.
The Democrat, if you're the elites of the Democratic Party, if you're the Biden White House, how concerned are you really about this faction of uncommitted voters staying home in November?
Well, I think there's a danger on both sides here that people are going to stay home. I think you've got traditional Republicans that no way they will vote for Joe Biden, and no way they will vote for Donald Trump. So there's going to be some people that are going to hold their nose and vote, and then there's going to be people that just stay home. The question is, will the Biden campaign be able, and by the way, there are no elites in our party, Alex.
Yes, sorry.
No elites.
Term doesn't exist,
I know you didn't mean that.
That doesn't exist.
But the question is, can Biden draw the kind of contrast around some issues like guns and abortion and, frankly, autocracy and what Trump is saying he's going to do? I mean, he's going to tear up
Dictator on day one.
Dictator on day one.
And there's
There you go. There you go. So there's the first bit.
I can't take that much stupid this early in the morning, man.
Well, we're going to break it
You're
up.
harshing my mellow, Keaton.
Yeah. Well, we're going to break it up a little bit because I did want to mix this in because even though obviously statewide the uncommitted was never going to win outright, the uncommitted campaign did actually outvote Joe Biden in the center of this effort, which is Dearborn, Michigan, obviously the largest Arab population in the state by far, where uncommitted trounces Biden in the Dearborn presidential primary. The uncommitted vote in Dearborn won 57% support, while Biden received 40%, according to the unofficial tally of every precinct in Dearborn posted on the city clerk's website. It marks a nearly 17-point loss for Biden in the city's primary. In total, 11,340 Dearborn voters participated in the Democratic presidential primary, with 4,526 voting for Biden and 6,432 selecting uncommitted. Biden also suffered electoral blows in other cities with significant Arab American and Muslim communities. Biden also lost to uncommitted and Hamtramck, where 828 uncommitted votes accounted for 61% of the total vote share in the city's Democratic presidential primary, according to unofficial results. In Dearborn Heights, a plurality but not a majority of voters picked uncommitted over Biden, according to the unofficial tally. All right, we'll get to that in a second. But, the other obstacle that the uncommitted vote faced, and why, you could imagine why the disaffection with Biden is going to actually be greater than even this uncommitted campaign would have you think, is that the people who are inclined to vote uncommitted are also probably less inclined to vote at all, right?
Yes.
You're not going to hire a babysitter so you can go and vote uncommitted, right? And so, it's a vote of no confidence. Voters of no confidence are less likely to vote at all. And Dearborn is a fairly large population center. The fact that only a little over 10,000 people showed up at all, that in alone is a horrible sign for Joe Biden. But obviously, the center of this uncommitted campaign was the Arab and Muslim community. And here's Nina Turner trying to get a word in edgewise on CNN about why this might be happening to Joe Biden. But Anderson Cooper led a panel-wide panic to try and shut that down as desperately as possible. So here's CNN.
They are, in fact, suffering. And I am young enough to remember, colleagues, when Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and also Congresswoman Cori Bush called for a ceasefire very early on. They were called abhorrent. Now, fast forward to all of these bodies laying in the wake and people who are living through this every single day.
So, by the way, there's also been slaughter in Israel.
I was going to say,
so,
yeah.
There's a lot of pain on both sides.
Quiet. Yeah, shut up.
Sure on the problem, but I'm talking about the politics of this tonight. What to you would be a victory, as somebody was calling for this uncommitted vote, what to you would be a victory tonight to get that message across?
I'm not denying that pain. All I'm saying that at a certain point after October the 7th, it becomes clear. I mean, you have a right-wing prime minister.
Right. We don't need to debate the issue.
No, we don't need to debate the issue. No.
Anybody's pain. All
right, fine. Yes, we know. People are dying.
This president and our country has the power to say to Netanyahu, we need a permanent ceasefire. The only time hostages, one more point. The only time hostages were released is when we had that brief ceasefire. That is another reason why.
Stop. Like, they asked her to give her analysis, and then when she starts explaining why there's a big uncommitted vote, especially centered in the Arab and Muslim areas, they're like, okay, we know, right wing, whatever. We don't have to talk about the issue. Well, that's the answer. Like, that's the answer you're looking for. Like, she can't explain this without getting into that.
Right. They want her to play the reindeer games. They want her to do the kind of Claire McCaskill witch from Hansel and Gretel, come into my gingerbread house of superficial horse race analysis. And look, I mean, none of us are really happy with Nina Turner at this point, I don't think. But she's still not what they are.
Right.
She's still not prepared to go full Donna Brazile on CNN, right? And just stay within those very narrowly prescribed lines. That is their only comfort zone, and the only comfort zone of their audience. Like, if you look at the running theme here, and we'll see this with the clip you pulled about the Trump trial. If you wonder why every lib you talk to is so misinformed, this is why. It's quite remarkable, some of the clips that we've pulled today, how it almost seems like it's gotten worse. Like they've really given up trying to inform their viewers. It seems like the imperative at this point has just become 100% to create a commercial news-like product that appeals to the few remaining people who watch this shit for entertainment and mistake it for actual journalism, because they're, just, it seems like they feel their purpose is to tell their viewers, no, none of this means anything. No, none of it's important. No,
yeah,
it
don't
doesn't
worry.
mean anything.
Don't worry. You'll be okay.
Don't worry.
We're here to give you the good news. We're your shoulder to cry on.
Right. And this is why you talk to a lib, and they all just repeat whatever the talking points are. No, but this is very common. This is very common. It really doesn't mean anything. Actually, it should have been a lot higher if people really cared. Because that's what they fucking hear. And
let's get into that right now, actually, because I have some exhibits that relate to that exactly. So
you hear what Jennifer Palmieri said about it? She's been in politics a very long time, you know.
So here's Jennifer Palmieri, who was the Clinton advisor in 2016, whose forecasting you should really take very seriously when it comes to these things here.
Oh, yeah.
Some historical context from Detroit News, and so they show the history of the uncommitted vote for Democrats. So as you could see, in 2008, 40% voted uncommitted. Now, there was no incumbent in 2008. Hillary Clinton was running against Barack Obama. Obama, through some technicality, failed to qualify for the ballot, and so the uncommitted vote was really a vote for Barack Obama. So that's why that was really high. Now, the other thing a lot of people are pointing to here is 2012, where uncommitted got about 10% of the vote. First of all, maybe if you're Jennifer Palmieri and you're advising the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016, you would have liked to look at that data point and notice that there were some vulnerabilities for Democrats post-financial crisis and post-bailout in the home of Ford. Right now, Barack Obama happened to be lucky enough that year to run against a candidate whose, signature op-ed was entitled "Let Detroit Go Bankrupt." So he survived that. Yeah. But that was an early warning sign that there maybe was some discontent with Barack Obama and the Democratic Party in Michigan, which could have come in handy in the 2016 campaign. But second of all, and most importantly, 10% voted uncommitted in 2012. It was a much, much, much lower turnout in 2012. And so the raw vote for uncommitted, as you could see, 20,833 people voted uncommitted in 2012. So really, in terms of raw vote, this was 5 times worse than the 2012 primary. 5 times worse. Just because as a percentage, it was roughly the same, a little bit lower. You had 100,000 vote uncommitted this time, and only 20,000 vote uncommitted in 2012. Now, 20,000 was far less than Obama's eventual margin of victory. That was partly because of who he was running in opposition to, Mitt Romney. But also, you
couldn't have picked a better person.
You couldn't have picked a better person to run against. But also, in a state like Michigan, it's just very unlikely, especially a state that leaned blue at that time, that 20,000 votes was going to be the difference. It's quite likely that 100,000 votes is going to be well outside, far larger than Biden's margin of victory in the state, if he wins a victory in the state, which as of now, polling has him down about an average of 5 points in the state. So to try and put this graphic up and say, well, look, 40% voted uncommitted in 2008, wrong. That was an Obama vote in 2008. And then in 2012, 10%, yeah, 10%, but 5 times fewer people. 5 times fewer people. And then if you look, 2016, 2020, those numbers are microscopic. So there's no real way to spin this into good news for Joe Biden. But Nate Silver will give it the old college try. Uncommitted didn't do well by any reasonable benchmark in Michigan. Not sure why people are trying to spin this into a story. If anything, a little bullish for Biden insofar as it suggests that the protest vote over Gaza might not be all that large. Talk about a guy who had all the credibility in the world after the 2012 race, oddly enough. just lit it on fire by becoming a total opinion hack. Nate Silver in that 2012 race called every single state. Not only did he call every single state, he was uncannily accurate in terms of the margins in the major swing states. He wrote a big book after that. He was the biggest political star in the world. Oh, Nate Silver, this guy's got it. Look to him. And then he took that, he read his own press, and he became a partisan hack. And now he's a joke. Now nobody looks to him for anything anymore except bullshit takes like this based on what is ultimately a very deceptive headline that is designed to, as Russell said, just put the lib's mind at ease. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry. It's all going to be okay. That's the purpose that this media serves, ultimately.
Well, and we're going to see in the clip we play later, when you wonder why people didn't see any alarm bells in the Trump-Hillary race, it's because of these people, none of whom lost their jobs. They're fucking telling their voters that Biden, Biden will get reelected. I was stunned to hear them saying that. Every poll says the opposite.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? There's absolutely nothing to support that. And they say it like, well, no, of course.
No, you had Rob Reiner tweet out this morning, either this morning or late last night, President Biden will win the popular vote by 7 to 10 million votes. It's a question of whether people in these key swing states turn out. What world are you living in where he's projected to win the popular vote by 7 to 10 million votes? He's losing in the average of general national polls.
And I remember after 2012, there was a lot of glee among the liberals and a lot of, false friend kind of signaling. Yes, well, Republican voters have been very badly served by their media because they should have known Mitt Romney was going to lose. Morning Joe did a whole monologue that went viral about that, about how the media, the conservative media, has really misled. Okay. Well, so what are you doing now? What are you all doing
the same
now?
Thing.
You're telling people, you're pumping them up that Joe Biden's going to be reelected? Are you kidding?
Well, So they're doing the same thing that they accused the Republican media of doing in 2012, number one. Number two, they are right. The Republican media did pump up the base with false hope in 2012, and the Republican base learned from that the next time. That's why they nominated Trump the next time, despite the Republican media warning that Trump couldn't win. But they're like, fuck you. You told us Romney was a lock, and he got his ass kicked. Right. So fuck you. We're not going to believe you anymore. The Democrats will never do that. They'll never cross MSNBC no matter what.
Lesson. No.
Right. Exactly.
No. They're going to tell them Biden's going to get reelected, and when he doesn't, they'll send out Joy Reid to talk about racist voters, and we were right, but we undercounted the racists.
Exactly.
We underestimated how profoundly racist the country actually
There
is
a sleeping giant of white nationalism in this country that we're sorry to say, we just had more faith in America than this, and we share in all of your shock and despair and disappointment. That's how they'll do it on election night if it goes sideways.
Yeah, exactly.
Sparky, thanks for the $5. Draught flow system like Guinness uses in their canned beers and some bottles was the most significant invention. That was pretty good. Yes, I can see that. Even more than the printing press, the draft beer system. Indeed. Thank you, Sparky. More specific than the wheel, it was the bearing that enabled the wheel to be used with heavy loads, which made the wheel more than just a toy.
See that, and that's going back to that Aztec thing, because the Aztecs did have like toys that were like wheeled carts, but they never developed the wheel per se.
Right. I'm going with cup. I'm still on that cup.
What about the 2-liter bottle?
Yeah, the 2-liter bottle, the 2-liter soda bottle. Folks, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help support this program. You get access to 2 monthly supporter streams, 2 streams per month that are exclusive to our Patreon members, our paid Substack members, and our paid Locals members. We had a lot of fun last night with all you guys. A lot of people called in. We did some really fun segments. And so it's great to tune in to those live streams if you do become a member. And if you don't tune into those live streams, they stay up on the replay. So you get 2 full-length shows per month. plus call-in access to our post-show question and answer sessions on Rumble. Those are every Sunday night. And you get your name up in lights on the show credits here. And when we do a documentary film, you get your name in the credits of those as well. You can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or DoDissidents.locals.com. Those are all the same in terms of perks. You can sign up for as little as $5 a month. It helps us out tremendously. You guys are what foolproof this operation. You are what keep us going. You're what give us the time to do these documentary films. Did you ever know? Keep going.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
I can't. That is too distracting. I can't talk over that. I'll lose my place. I will lose my place if I try to do that. We'll have to put that in the sound board for next time. That'll be a good thing to drop for the patrons. Pat Donahue, thanks for the $5. Next time you hit Britain, must ask you to use your powers of persuasion to ask them to give us our 6 counties free Ireland. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, that'll be for the next trip.
Damn right. And let me just clarify. There are a lot of hot British women, but there's a variety of British women that you know what I'm talking about. It's the lack of sunlight, where they look just like really desiccated. In between that, and yes, the dental thing is a real thing. Although I will say this time when I came, that I don't know what they did. Maybe they added that mind-altering fluoride to the water. Because when I came for the first time in 1980, that British teeth thing was a real thing. And I did not see a lot of that this time.
Less of a thing nowadays?
It seems like it. It seems like it.
We're at 726.
But yeah, no, like lack of sunlight. Just like, you know, like that's the pasty thing. That's where that comes from.
Well, yeah, if it's cloudy all the time, what are you going to do about that? Can't control the weather.
Exactly.
Gourds were used to carry water before pottery, says Sparky. Okay, call it the discovery then of the cup. If you don't want to call it an invention, call it a discovery. I think the discovery.
See, Sparky's with me, man.
The discovery of water transport, that was very significant. I would argue that's as significant as the wheel. Virtuoso.
Well, they did it first with enemas. They would enema slaves to get the water.
Yeah. Did Marianne hire a necromancer to unsuspend her campaign? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, we'll see. Derek, thanks for the $5. Like a zombie, Marianne won't go away. Who does she think she is? Hillary Clinton? Yeah, she was really, I guess, inspired by that 3% showing. Really gave her a second win.
It's just, it's getting so R-word, shall we say, at this point. I just don't get it. And I'm very curious, like, do the Marianne shills come out and actually, I think this is too embarrassing at this point even for them. Like, I don't think they can come out and go, Marianne's back. I think they're going to ignore it.
I don't think Kyle's going to come out with a video being like, she's back, it's on. I don't think so.
I think they're going to ignore it.
They probably will. That would be my guess. Yes, indeed. Derek P., thanks for the $5. There's no elites in our party, and the mob doesn't exist. Right, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thaddeus Mason says on Rumble, thanks for the donation, you can make someone a moderator in Rumble. I looked it up, and they have a little 2-minute video explaining the steps to do it. All right, Thaddeus Mason, you're hired.
Well, Jake is a moderator.
Yeah, well, that's true. Jake actually has access to the Do Dissidents Rumble account, so he can act as moderator when he's on. But we might need a morning moderator for when he's not on, is I think what people are saying. So if anybody wants to volunteer, any regulars over in the Rumble chat who want to volunteer to do it when you're on a stream, I'll hook you up. Pat Donahue, my criticism of Nina Turner would be, she was praising the squad when running for election. She loses, then changes your tune. I don't trust her. Yeah, I mean, look, she's a Democrat. Yeah, I mean, you know, what is there to say about a Democrat at this point? But like Russell said, you know, she's not willing to totally toe the party line on an issue like this, and she did encourage the uncommitted campaign. Declaring independence. Hey, here's Jose Vega. Hey, Jose, took a break from work this morning to see that some people signed up to volunteer. The NSA will be contacting you shortly. Yes. All right, so it works. So some of you guys did sign up. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Thank you. Hey, man, you might be out there with me. When I go back to New York, I'm going to do some stickering for Jose.
There we go. Beautiful.
I'm going to be walking around Harlem, spreading the good news.
Is it Harlem? Is his district? Is any of his district in Harlem? I think he's only the Bronx, right? Or is it Harlem?
Oh, right. I
think
guess it's kind of
You have to go
useless
to
in
the Bronx.
Harlem.
Yeah,
right.
you got to go to the Bronx.
Well, but it's the next place over. It's not Harlem.
Yeah, it's not far. No, it's very close. The message Biden hears will stop the genocide in October. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, October surprise. It should be too late already. Like, I don't see why people are being like, yeah, we'll vote for him if he secures a ceasefire now. Like, it's too late. Like, 30,000 dead is too much. Like, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, you still demand it, obviously, but you don't say I'll vote for you if you stop it now. That's insane. I had this idea too, actually, Derek. This is a good idea. I'm going to pitch this to some of my independent media colleagues. Write in Aaron Bushnell for president. That would be a good write-in campaign. I do like that. Thank you, Derek. It's funny because I thought of that, and maybe we'll try and get something like that going.
That's a good idea.
It is a good idea. Okay, let's move on here. We have some more good news for Donald Trump. His luck just keeps improving here. In taking up Trump's immunity claim, the Supreme Court bolstered his delay strategy by scheduling a hearing for late April on the former president's assertion that he cannot be prosecuted for his actions in office. The justices increased the chances that he will not face trial by Election Day. It's a beautiful thing. Everything's working out great. The Supreme Court, they say I can kill whoever I want. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Over there.
You over there.
Dead.
Exactly.
It's like I saw that movie once, Caligula. I liked it. I liked it. He would just say, hey, you, get in the ground.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a wonderful thing. Who knew? Who knew you could do it that way? I wish I knew that the first time.
Maybe I'll make my horse a general. That was the other thing he did. I liked that movie.
Exactly. The Supreme Court that former President Donald J. Trump helped to shape, yes, as is his role as president, tossed him a legal lifeline on Wednesday night, making a choice that substantially aided his efforts to delay his federal trial on charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 election. By deciding to take up Mr. Trump's claim that presidents enjoy almost total immunity from prosecution for any official action while in office, a legal theory rejected by two lower courts and one that few experts think has any basis in the Constitution, the justices brought the former president at least several months before a trial on the election interference charges can start. It is not out of the question that Mr. Trump could still face a jury in the case in federal district court in Washington before Election Day. At this point, the legal calendar suggests that if the justices issue a ruling by the end of the Supreme Court's term in June and find that Mr. Trump is not immune from prosecution, the trial could still start by late September or October. But with each delay, the odds increase that voters will not get a chance to hear the evidence that Mr. Trump sought to subvert the last election before they decide whether to back him in the current one. If Mr. Trump is successful in delaying the trial until after Election Day and he wins, he could use the powers of his office to seek to dismiss the election interference indictment altogether. Moreover, Justice Department policy precludes prosecuting a sitting president, meaning that once sworn in, he could likely have any federal trial he is facing postponed until after he left office. So that's obviously a huge break for him because if he could get the trial postponed until after November, then that's not an obstacle to his running this campaign. The mood was not bright on MSNBC in response to this news. Here's Rachel Maddow on a panel looking literally on the verge of tears.
My good friends Rachel Maddow and Lawrence
She
O'Donnell,
often does.
host of The Rachel Maddow Show and The Last Word right here on MSNBC.
It's
Rachel,
the Basset Hound eyes.
I will say something.
Yes.
I am mad at myself for how surprised I was. I was mad at myself as the time went by, the 2.5 weeks. I think a lot of people thought, and this was with informed speculation by people I respect, people who've clerked on the court, people who've been around the court, studied the court, know the court. There is no way they could take 2.5 weeks only then to say we're taking the case 7 weeks from now. What was your reaction to what you did?
I mean,
I don't think you should be mad at yourself. I don't think you should be embarrassed. I think everybody sort of thought that was the only kind of decent explanation for how long they were taking, that they were going to not take up the case, that maybe Samuel Alito or one of the other real MAGA judges was going to be really mad about it, was going to write an angry dissent, was biding for as much time as he could because this was his last chance to insert delay, which of course is what Trump wants. I think that was, you know, if you think about the court as the Supreme Court of the United States and a rational actor and a decent one, that was a reasonable supposition, and it just turns out they're not that. And Chris, I feel you in terms of the emotion that you're bringing to this right now, and the sort of sense of urgency with which you're underscoring what this means.
Horrible.
It's true. There just isn't any way around it. And I feel like for people who haven't been following this, if you want to know why there's a hair on fire reaction to this, if you haven't been following every interstitial, incremental bit of progress here, the important question here is not whether the Supreme Court is going to decide that Donald Trump and all presidents are immune from prosecution for things they commit, crimes they committed while they were president. I mean, it would be fully insane for them to actually side with Trump here, right? Remember, this is the case where Trump's lawyer was asked by Judge Florence Pan in the appeals court, are you telling me that this guy that a president could order the assassination of his political rivals and there could be no prosecution for that? That would be okay? We'd have to let that go? Not only for the duration of his...
I mean, that's what they're saying. I mean, that's the Supreme Court. They get to they get to decide, who are you? Who are you? What do you know? Who are you to say who I can kill and can't kill?
I believe in the Constitution.
I believe in the Constitution. I'm a man of the law. Yes, this is a nation of laws, we'll have you know. And the law says I get to do whatever I want because I'm the president.
If I want to round up everybody on this panel, I can do that.
I can do that. Yeah. So better watch your mouth.
I'd be careful. You might want to invest in a red hat.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And see, for the duration of his life, that would be okay. And Trump's lawyers are basically like, yeah. So the idea that they're going to side with him on immunity is unthinkable and also beside the point. The conclusion that we can arrive at now based on what they have done without having to wait for the ruling is that they are ensuring that Trump will not face trial. And when they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the presidency. Right. And if he is voted out in 2028, he cannot leave office, and he is willing to he is welcome to commit any crimes he wants to, as long as he is still president, in order to ignore the result of that election and stay in power for life, because otherwise he is going to go to prison when he gets out. That is the way this is going to go unless the country votes Trump out, votes for Biden and against Trump in November.
And they're really afraid that it's going to be up to the people to vote against Trump. That's what they really are like, oh my God, now we're going to actually have to beat him in an election. What a threat to democracy that is, that we're actually going to have to win an election. Number one. Number two, I just have to unpack a little bit of what she said there, because Rachel Maddow, despite having this reputation, she's a Rhodes Scholar, a very intelligent person, as we know from her years of covering Russiagate, she will spin the most insane and unhinged conspiracy theories you've ever heard, yet she never gets called a conspiracy theorist. So what she's saying here, what she just said there...
She, with one exception... When Russiagate blew up, a lot of journalists decided to try to scapegoat her for the failure of the entire industry. That was the only time you ever saw mainstream media criticize Rachel Maddow. There was like a scathing New York Times piece that basically called her a Glenn Beck. I don't know if they used those exact words, but it really went right up to that. Like, she owes everyone an apology. That was the only time I ever saw her get called out. And it was, I read it as media self-interest. They want to go, Rachel made us do it. Rachel made us do it.
Right. They pinned it all on her. But, I mean, she's not the only one, for sure. But because she has such gravitas at the network, because she is really the avatar for liberal media, and because she is a very smart person who presents very well, she's very talented at what she does, she is able to spin these insane theories. So what she just said there was going to happen. She said the Supreme Court granted him this delay. Basically, they granted him a hearing period. knowing that they're not going to rule in his favor. What she's saying is that they know they're eventually going to rule that no, a president is not exempt from prosecution, but that they are purposefully delaying the trial until after he is president again. And once they rule that he can be prosecuted after leaving office, that will then prompt him to become the permanent president for life. Because once he finds out that he can and perhaps will be prosecuted after he leaves office, he will then take that as his cue to declare himself president for life because he doesn't want to go to jail. Now, you think of how insane that is and how many barriers there are to that. This is what people never understood, even with all the January 6th
the entire military
hysteria.
would have to line up behind it.
Everybody would have to line up behind it.
The
Trump
police forces, everybody would have to back it.
Trump couldn't even get his own vice president to cooperate on January 6th, right? It was delayed for a few hours because of what happened, but ultimately the system held together because for all of the faults and for all of the dysfunctions that come with our system, there are enough norms and guardrails to keep a thing like that from happening. So it's just insane, speculative fear-mongering on her part. And let's also be honest. If Trump does win and he serves another 4 years, there's going to be very little appetite to go after him after he leaves office. You're talking about 5 years from now. The country is going to be in a very, very different place by then. Right now, they're prosecuting him so that he doesn't become the president again. Once he becomes the president again, you think they're really going to go after him when he's, 83, 84 years old, a former president? That's not going to happen. It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. She's just saying that to scare everybody into voting for Joe Biden. Not that the people watching her need any convincing in the first place, but that's the point of that. Just more unhinged fear-mongering.
This is the question people never ask who would actually watch her and take her seriously. Okay, but how do you get from A to B to C? And again, this is just a commercial product. This is what her audience wants. They want to hear these dire, horrific scenarios of what's going to happen if he's going to become president for life. It's the end of democracy. I mean, they told us that the first time, right? It was going to be the end of democracy. It was going to be this fascist leader. And I think you could substantively argue that Joe Biden has governed in a much more fascistic way than Donald Trump did.
And much more destructive around the world, too.
They are currently appealing the principle that they have the right to interfere with tech companies and what speech tech companies allow. They are currently appealing a lower court decision in, what was it, Missouri? Was that Missouri? Yeah,
Missouri.
That it is de facto interference when the FBI says, hey, we got a list of accounts. Maybe you should look at those accounts. We're not saying you have to take them down, but, it might be a good idea. It is de facto government interference. Even if we're not technically telling them they must. It's implied. It's implied. And I think that ruling did actually make that comparison to the mafia. So they're currently appealing it. So that is, as a journalist, that should terrify you. You should be speaking out about that, but Rachel Maddow never will.
Right. But also, I mean, you're horrified by this. What liberals are horrified by is just it's amazing. That they're so much more horrified that Trump got a delayed trial date than they are about what's going on in Gaza now, than they are about Ukraine. I mean, we're going to do a story on Ukraine. We have a couple of little mini segments on Ukraine, actually, in this show. But, what really gets them terrified is that Donald Trump is getting away with something, right? That's the scariest thing in the world in these people's minds, right? Nothing else seems to trigger them all that much except that. Now in this world. I feel your emotion. I see the emotion in your voice now. Just incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah, well, this is and something they will never own. Any normal person, these are the most disgusting fucking people to watch. They're just disgusting. Everything they say, the way they formulate, the way they frame things, everything's emotional and everything's all of this, how my feelings. You make Trump look like a really great prospect by comparison. Like anyone who makes you feel this bad couldn't be all bad.
It can't be all that bad. Right. There's at least a consolation prize that comes with electing him, which is that it triggers you.
That's
right.
It.
Gives us the emotional gratification of triggering you.
That was his appeal the first time. And that goes double this time.
Yeah. Oh, indeed. Yeah, well, indeed. Because if he wins this time, think about it, they'd have been better off just letting him win last time, because then they'd have gotten it over with. All they did now is extend the timeline 4 years.
Well, in this, what's happening with cable news, I mean, it's something you see across the board. That's why I keep saying this is the battle of our times. It is, they're dying. They're dying because the people who watch them are dying. They've already had to rig the algorithm on platforms like YouTube to boost the videos from places like CNN and MSNBC. Nobody was watching that shit. Nobody was watching it. Now the algorithm is pumping it out and suppressing channels like ours. In a fair and free marketplace, they were getting killed. The only reason, most people don't realize this, the only reason they even still exist is that in cable packages around the country, it's bundled in. And they get money from those subscription fees.
Exactly.
That's it. They don't have enough viewers to sustain themselves in a fair and free competition for advertising dollars. They don't get enough viewers. The whole thing would collapse if it were really on free market principles. It is purely because they get bundled in with these cable packages that they exist at all. Eventually, they're just not going to be able to sustain these kinds of news programs on anything like commercial grounds. You're going to have some of these cable packages will eventually start getting the bright idea, hey, man, maybe we can reduce the fees we charge subscribers by offering to get rid of this.
Right.
And then once that happens, it'll snowball. It's going to be the end of this whole thing. They see that. What's happening now across society at every level is these elite institutions trying to rig the game to preserve their power and privileges. That is why they've become so pro-censorship. That is why they lean on outlets like Google to fuck with the algorithm on YouTube to give them an artificial advantage. This is all about trying to maintain their position in society, a position that, all things being equal, and the capitalism that they claim to love is allowed to play out, they are not a going concern for very much longer.
Right. Indeed. For sure. Hobo Jesus, thanks for the $5. You can't wear that nail polish in fucking Gaza. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a fun segment. I watch that clip daily and die every time. I remember when Trump took a dementia test. Did Biden? Yeah, no, he's not taking a cognitive test.
And can you imagine if that was Trump? Can you imagine how they'd be howling if Trump were the president and he refused to take a dementia test? Not that I would put it past him, but they would never shut up about it.
No, of course not. Of course not. And yes, thank you for the shout out there. I enjoyed that segment too. That was a fun one. Joe Boo, thanks for the $5. Votes, voting, polls, favorability, LOL. A spell has been cast upon you. Take a poll of who counts the votes and who programs the voting machine, says Joe Boo. Caves of Chaos 123. Biden will win with 95% of the vote, even as he's been dead for 6 months. You think this is a democracy? Can you show any proof?
I cannot, sir.
Jophus Oglethorpe, there is a perfect picture of Nate Silver looking all disheveled the night Trump won. I laugh whenever I see it. Yeah.
The Hillary voters crying compilations never get old. Those never fail to cheer me up in a dark moment.
Of course not. Yeah, that's always fun. Thank you for your work, says Simon Scherer. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. The spork. Yeah, spork. That's a good invention as well. Good for the kiddos.
What about the cock ring?
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. That's revolutionary. In especially in the early days. All right, let's go on to let's see what do we got in terms of Rumble rants here. Are the masses nothing but infants? It's the same boogeyman trope over and over again. Trump, Russia, etc. When are the people going to laugh these fearmongers off the stage? Well, most people already have. You know, that's what Russell was just saying. Like the ratings on these programs are pretty low. Even the Maddow as a percentage of the overall population is still quite low.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the average age is like 72.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. All right, folks, let's go on to segment number 4. We got some sad news last night. Mitch McConnell's exit as Senate leader, means new uncertainty as GOP falls in line with Trump. So here is Mitch McConnell announcing that he is stepping down, not as senator. He's not quitting midterm, but he is exiting his leadership role as the minority leader of the Republican Party this November. Here he is on the Senate floor.
Politics within my Believe me, I know the politics within my party at this particular moment in time. I have many faults. Misunderstanding politics is not one of them. That said, I believe more strongly than ever that America's global leadership is essential to preserving the shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan discussed. As long as I'm drawing breath on this earth, I will defend American exceptionalism. So as I've been thinking about when I would deliver some news to the Senate, I always imagined a moment when I had total clarity and peace about the sunset of my work. A moment when I'm certain I have helped preserve the ideals I so strongly
They
believe.
say an old turtle can't change its shell.
That day arrived today.
That day arrived today. He's gone. The AP reports long before Senator Mitch McConnell surprised colleagues Wednesday announcing he would step down as the Republican leader this fall. He knew the time had come. Hard-right Republican senators aligned with Donald Trump wanted to oust him. Trump was easily becoming the party's frontrunner for a do-over election with President Joe Biden. And having largely recovered his health from a devastating fall last year, McConnell was back on his game. In assembling top aides in January to disclose his intentions ahead of his 82nd birthday, McConnell told him he had just one more priority to secure: supplemental aid for Ukraine as it battles Russia. Believe me, I know the politics within my party at this particular moment in time, McConnell said in a speech. We just played that speech, delivered midday on Wednesday from the Senate floor. We'll skip ahead here. Mitch McConnell's departure leaves the Senate and the Republican Party itself at an uncertain crossroads days before the Super Tuesday presidential primary elections, when Trump is expected to sweep up more states in his march to the Republican Party nomination. Trump's ascent proved to be an almost untenable political situation for McConnell. The two men have not spoken since December 2020, when McConnell declared that Biden had legally won that year's election. McConnell lashed out at the defeated president after the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, calling Trump morally responsible for the bloody siege. All right, bloody siege. All right, whatever. We won't litigate that. He has not yet endorsed Trump for president in 2024. Like the House, where Republicans ousted Kevin McCarthy as Speaker in fall, as Speaker in the fall, the latest in a growing list of GOP speakers sent prematurely to the exits, the Senate is now following suit in the Trump era, essentially leaving the long-serving McConnell with few options but to decide for himself it was time to go. So obviously, as this story says, and we knew this going in, McConnell and Trump have been on bad terms for the past few years. It was going to be a brutal cycle for him had he stayed on. He is still technically staying on, but now he's a lame duck. He's on the outs. They're going to have their eyes on who the next leader is. So it takes a lot of pressure off the old man now that he gets to wash his hands of it. But this is why. So we're going to read some pieces here. I think it'll be great because I think Trump will win. We have a leader who can work well with the next Republican president, said Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. I think the Republican Party is going through a pretty dramatic transition, Marco Rubio said, and that's obviously playing out in the halls of Congress as well. This is a good development. My question is, why wait so long, said Senator Josh Hawley. Hawley said November is a long time away. We need new leadership now. And if we look, this is a Politico headline. As McConnell steps down, Ukraine loses a powerful GOP mega booster. So McConnell was really on the wrong side of the party for a bunch of reasons. Obviously, the personal animus between him and Trump was not helpful going into a campaign season. But also, McConnell, and I suppose fruitlessly trying to get Ukraine aid through is a better use of time for the country than trying for the 355th time to slash Medicaid expansions under Obamacare, which was his pet cause in years past. I suppose that is a better use of time. But here is Mitch McConnell during those border bill negotiations talking about Ukraine.
Emphasizing the border, I want to remind everybody of the importance of Ukraine. We heard from the president today. He is inspirational. They have
talking about President Zelensky,
one of our biggest adversaries for almost 2 years now. We haven't lost a single person. NATO has expanded. The Japanese, the South Koreans, the Taiwanese, the Australians all care about what happens in Ukraine. We're not losing track of that. It's just that border security applies to us as well. And that's why we've emphasized so much that subject in the last few days.
So you see, this guy was just forced out of the party. The party really has moved on from him. And obviously, you know, he was never a big fan of Trump. Trump was never a big fan of his. He's more old school, shall we say. Yeah. But also, it is not debatable right now that the Republican Party, relative to the Democrats, don't come at me. I'm putting relative to the Democrats, bold type, all caps, underline, are the anti-war of the two parties. And he is not. He is a full-fledged war hawk, especially on the Russia-Ukraine fronts. And there's just no appetite for that anymore. And so between that and Trump about to lock up the nomination for real, he thought it was time to go. And the party really has moved on from him.
Yeah, well, and I saw a headline in the Daily Beast that we're going to share, which really demonstrates how much, in the end, there's this perception that the media is liberal. It's not liberal. It's a courtier to power. So Mitch McConnell's been around a long time, and I'm sure he has a lot of relationships with journalists. So this is the Daily Beast, right? It's this very liberal outlet. Mitch McConnell could have been one of the greats, but Trump beat him. So the problem with Mitch McConnell, according to this, is not that he vowed to gum up Obama's entire political project in order to make him a one-term president. It's not that he broke all norms by refusing to vote for a Supreme Court justice, leaving the seat vacant. The problem,
he refused to give Merrick Garland a hearing. Forget about not voting for him. He wouldn't even start the process. Wouldn't even open up the process to the rest of the government.
Right. That's not the problem. The problem is that he did not vote to impeach Trump. That's the problem. So that's the kind of coverage that you're seeing from the supposedly liberal outlets on this. McConnell has become one of their own, as has any scumbag who opposes Trump in any way.
Yep.
the Cheneys, George Bush, all of these fucking criminals, all of these people who have done things that have had tremendously negative consequences, even for the political projects and figures they claim to care about. As long as they're opposed to Trump, they're rehabilitated. Now McConnell is a tragic figure, leaving the party in the hands of
it's unbelievable.
MAGA
You know what?
Republicans.
I didn't think we were going to do this. We didn't plan to do this, but I'm going to clip this separately. So why don't you read a couple paragraphs from that? I'm just curious to see that, because that headline is truly amazing. While Russell is bringing that up,
back.
That's okay. While he's bringing that up, it is truly amazing that they could write a headline like that, because until Trump came around, and even during Trump's first term, when Mitch McConnell mostly cooperated with Trump, but even before Trump's first term, Mitch McConnell was perceived quite accurately as the most destructive figure in American government. There's not a person who did more to actually tear down the American system than him, because of those two things that he mentioned. I mean, McConnell started out the Obama years saying, my goal is to make Barack Obama a one-term president. He then broke with norms not to grant a Supreme Court justice a hearing. I mean, no one person ushered in the era of just hyper-partisan power politics for power's sake than he did. And yet, the ultimate failing in their mind, in fact, the only failing in their mind now, is that he didn't vote to impeach Donald Trump, when their critique of Mitch McConnell went far beyond that, for years and years and years. So anyway, Russell, do you want to just read a sample of that? I'm just curious.
As a young Republican, he was ahead of the curve on civil rights, only to see his party continue to back a man many considered to be a racist.
Wow.
2 decades ago, McConnell was the lead opponent against the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, aka McCain-Feingold, a well-meaning if ill-considered campaign finance reform legislation that had the unintended consequence of destroying political parties and ultimately giving us Donald Trump. It was signed into law by President George W. Bush, a Republican. Just 1 decade ago, then Senator Majority Leader McConnell beat back the radicals in his party, keeping them from squandering winnable seats. Today, the fight is over, and the bad guys won.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how they just memory hole everything pre-2017.
Everything that doesn't fit the narrative.
This fucking guy was merciless in his efforts to take health care away from the working poor. We're not fans of Obamacare here. We're not fans of Obama, obviously. But one of the very few silver linings of that ruling was the Medicaid expansion. And this guy was merciless in trying to take that away from families making $30,000 a year. That was his goal before World War III became his goal. I mean, this guy is a vicious, uncaring ghoul of the lowest order. Before 2017, it was common opinion amongst everyone to the left of Mitt Romney that this was the most destructive political figure in modern American history in terms of damaging our systems and undermining faith in our institutions, which is what they accuse Trump of now. And it was a given that Mitch McConnell was the most dangerous man in Washington. And now they're saying if he had only voted to impeach Trump, he would have been one of the greats?
He would have gone down history as one of the greats.
That's astounding. That is truly astounding.
They rehabilitated George Bush. They rehabilitated Dick Cheney. They have Bill Kristol as a frequent guest on the Sunday morning roundtables. All you have to do is not cross them on certain things like war, right? You can't call out the media as an enemy. There are just certain third rails you can't cross. And as long as you don't cross those, you want to shit all over the poor, you want to take away school lunches.
Yeah.
You can do all that. You can do all that. You just can't fuck with Lockheed Martin, and you can't fuck with meet the press. As long as you don't do that, they'll write glowing articles about you, and you can't embrace Trump. You can't be pro-Trump. As long as you fulfill those requirements, you're in the club.
Yeah, that is just incredible. Wow. From the Daily Beast. I mean, that figures that they'd write.
Daily Beast.
Yeah. Yep. Not surprising, but surprising at the same time. I mean, that's just amazing. It really is.
Well, that's how you wind up with these fucking people telling you, George Bush, he was an honest Republican you could have disagreements with, but he was an honorable man.
Just incredible. Unbelievable.
What? I had a fucking Lynn say to me, George Bush never ruined anyone's Thanksgiving. What? Yeah. Where were you during the Bush years? Like, not someone who had been a child, like someone who had been an adult during those years, who was old enough to remember.
McConnell denied Merrick Garland a hearing. He then forced Brett Kavanaugh through, and then forced Amy Coney Barrett through in the 11th hour of Trump's time in office, which everybody pointed out the hypocrisy to not grant Merrick Garland a hearing because it was too late in Obama's term, but you literally pushed a nominee through in 6 weeks, and that's why we don't have Roe v. Wade anymore. That guy, the guy who pushed that through, it wasn't Trump who made that happen. It was Mitch McConnell who made that happen, right?
Right.
Now he's the guy who, but for his support for Trump in the impeachment, would have gone down as one of the greats.
Right. And they're framing all of this. They framed it this way with McCarthy, too, that a more conservative, more hard right group is taking over. They're not more conservative. They're not more hard right. They're more populist.
Right. They're more
That's
populist.
what bothers you about them.
Right.
I'm not saying they're substantively better on, say, economics. Hawley tried to make some noises in that direction, but he never really followed through. Vance, another one, never really followed through to the logical conclusion of shifting the base of support for the Republican Party to blue-collar workers. Right. That the parties just need to just completely transform into their opposite numbers, as they have in the past. The Republican Party, the logical conclusion is they become the New Deal Democrats. That ultimately, if you want to serve this voting base that you now have, you need to actually offer them something. Like, eventually, they're going to have to face that you can't just keep going with libertarian economics when you have a blue-collar, working-class, working-poor voting base. So they're not a change in that, but as you point out, they're more anti-war.
Of course.
I mean, McConnell's signature is being pro-war and pro-Ukraine. They're not more conservative on abortion. They seem to be about the same. So how are they more conservative? They're not more conservative. They're just more populist. And you actually have some members who are going to ask questions when you want to send billions of dollars to the most corrupt country in Europe.
Exactly. And that seems to be the real sticking point, because that's something that the Daily Beast liberals and the neocon Republicans are in total lockstep on. Ukraine, right? When there's a war to fund, Mitch McConnell's defiant stand against the more rising populist base of his party and saying, no, we must get this Ukraine funding through. Yeah, our border's important, but so is theirs. That is music to the Daily Beast's ears. That wins you a lot of credibility back. They'll forget all about you're trying to crush people's health care if you go to bat for their war.
Well, and it is remarkable when you look at these people like Mitch McConnell that would fucking, would gladly windpipe a child trying to get a sloppy Joe on a lunch line, who's very concerned about making sure that Ukraine has the money to pay for all of those services for its people with our money.
Right, exactly. And that warms their heart. Riff Sife, thanks for the $5. Since Hollywood loves doing remakes and shoehorning politics, now's the perfect time to start filming One Flew Over the Cornell West. Yeah, there you go. Good, Riff Sife. Thank you.
That would be a funny sketch.
That would be a funny sketch.
Yeah. Who would he be, McMurphy or Chief Bromden?
I think he'd probably be the McMurphy character, right? You'd have to give him the lead.
Guess so.
Pickle the Pirate. By the way, the blind panic in the New York Times comments, RE uncommitted in Michigan, was delicious. Denial, rage, grief, then some acceptance. Message is sinking in. Love it. You know, it's funny. I should look at the New York Times comment section more. Every once in a while, you'll hear people bring up the New York Times comment section. It never occurs to me to look there, but that would
probably almost as good as the Hillary voters crying montage.
Yeah, you know, we could probably get some good material out of the New York Times comment section. We should start looking more.
Plug this.
Oh, that's right. I meant to do that before. I meant to do that when we had the when we had the patron scroll going. But yeah, so the volume is low enough. So yeah, let's plug this now. Let's see if we can move some product. Russell, why don't you get the music going, and I will do a screen share here. You notice Russell's wearing his Due Dissidents schmata here. So you can go to dudissidents.com/merch and get some stuff. I know somebody asked about merch on Twitter the other day. Excuse me. You can go to dudissidents.com/merch and get our cartoon logo t-shirt, tank tops, coffee mugs, hoodies.
I can't give it up. Hey, on 7th Avenue.
There you go.
Say Mick Jagger stole that shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's starting to become hoodie season again, folks. You know, we think of fall as hoodie season, and fall is hoodie season, but early spring is also hoodie season, right? Late March, early April, that's hoodie season as well, because you're transitioning from winter into spring. So you get a lot of those same kind of 40, 50-degree days in late March that you do in like mid to late October. So it's hoodie weather again, and so you can get one of our lovely zip hoodies with the patch logo here at dudissidents.com/merch. Also, for some reason, it doesn't work on the live streams. I don't know why YouTube does that, but when you guys watch our clipped videos now, our merch stand is located directly under the video screen, since we have integrated the merch shop with YouTube. So when you watch our clip videos, you can shop while you watch right under there. And yes, Russell sporting the merch today. We have 850 of you over on Rumble right now. We have 1,814 in the YouTube chat.
You know, I actually, speaking of Mick, I want to do a segment on this because I wanted to go see the Rolling Stones at Jazz Fest in New Orleans. I would have actually come back for that.
Right.
But the tickets sold out immediately as soon as the single day tickets went on sale for it.
Right.
And then in the secondary market, it was $455. I'm like, I ain't paying $455.
No,
to see it.
that's
Not yet.
insane.
If you could jump in a time machine and watch them in 1967, I'd pay that. I'm not paying them now. So then I started looking up. I was like, well, they must be coming to New York. Maybe I'll just go to the concert. The fucking cheapest ticket to see these guys in New York was like $755 fucking dollars.
No,
guess who's sponsoring it? It's on the logo. It's on the Rolling Stones Hackney Diamond Store logo. Guess who's sponsoring this tour? You would not believe it. You would think just for perception they would turn down that sponsorship.
AARP.
You got it.
Wow, I guess
they are being sponsored by AARP. That is the sponsor.
Wow, that was a good guess.
Tour.
How do you like
AARP.
that?
You're right. Yes.
Yeah. That's wild. That's wild. No, the secondary concert ticket market is supposedly just insane now. Like, it's insane.
I don't know how
they get away with that.
Look, from what I hear from people with Jazz Fest, I hear very mixed things, but a lot of people say it's really not a good time because by that time in New Orleans, it's pretty fucking hot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a bunch of people crammed into a fucking field with no seating and no overhead sun blocking. You know, just there are VIP sections if you want to be in those, but if you're not in those, I've had a lot of people who went be like, yeah, you don't want to go to Jazz Fest.
Yeah, I believe that. 007 Angelo, cup equals great idea. 2 girls in cup, worst idea in history. Yeah. Cup is a great idea, though, as we know. Just my opinion, thanks for the $6.99. They're worried every day that the grift of MSM is up. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Trump's speech, it's good to be the king, drops Mike. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Sparky, my boomer debutante sister-in-law, literally gets 100% of her news from Rachel Maddow.
Oh, no.
She does so because real news might make her feel bad. That's the purpose of a lot of it. They very much function as a shoulder to cry on. They're their friends or their family. You know, that there's a kinship that develops there. right? Just like, I mean, this is kind of an interactive show here because we interact with the chat, but we try to build some community around this podcast. In the minds of a lot of audience members of mainstream media, there's community there, even though there's not, because you don't actually get to interact. But that's your friend that you see every day, right? At a certain time.
Yep. That's what's sad. That's why it attracts elderly people.
Right.
It makes them feel like they're involved and they're engaged in something. And if you have any people like that on your social media, it's kind of sad, man. It really is, because all they do is like pump out shit about Donald Trump that they heard on MSNBC to feel like they're part of society.
Exactly. All right, folks, we got 2 more segments this morning to do. This is a report on a report. So the New York Times put out a huge report on the CIA's involvement in Ukraine this week. That is a massive story. And so in the interest of time, I chose a different source that describes the findings of that. And what I like to do whenever possible is pick a source that is most likely to be hostile to my point of view so that people can't say, well, that's just propaganda. You can't call this Russian propaganda because this piece right here, how the CIA supports Ukraine and vice versa, this is from the Kiev Post, Ukraine's global voice. So they did a write-up on the Times piece. The New York Times published an investigative report on Sunday quoting anonymous sources from among the intelligence communities in the U.S., Europe, and Ukraine who say that the U.S. CIA has helped Ukraine to establish 12 secret spy bases throughout the country. According to the report, the CIA and other U.S. intelligence services track the movements of Russian troops, gather intelligence for missile strikes, and maintain spy networks with the help of these bases. For almost 10 years, the U.S. has been helping Kiev to train a, quote, new generation of Ukrainian spies who are operating globally against Russia. Thanks to this network of bases, Kiev has become one of Washington's most important intelligence partners. It has proved so successful that prior to the war, they were producing more intelligence than U.S. intelligence staff in Ukraine were able to process, and today are intercepting more Russian communications than the CIA's own base in Russia, the New York Times notes. The network of CIA bases in Ukraine began to be established 8 years ago. The news site says they were assembled, quote, piece by piece under U.S. Presidents Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. At first, U.S. intelligence was reluctant to work with Kiev because it feared that many former Soviet Ukrainian intelligence officials might be compromised and would pass information to Russia, or that the CIA interaction with them might provoke Moscow. However, all that changed in 2015 when General Valery Kondratyuk, I hope I said that name right, who was then the head of Ukraine's military intelligence directorate, handed over a stack of top secret files to the CIA representative in the U.S. Embassy without warning. After this, the Times wrote, Ukrainian intelligence regularly provided Americans with classified information to, quote, create conditions of trust. This was well before the war, right? Like I said, this was 2015, after the coup. The New York Times claims that the Ukrainians proved themselves to the Americans by collecting intercepted data that helped prove Russian involvement in the downing of the Malaysia Airlines jetliner in 2014. Ukrainians also helped Americans prosecute the Russian agents who interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. It was because of this newfound trust that the CIA began training an elite Ukrainian special forces unit known as Unit 2245, which captured Russian drones and communications equipment so that CIA technicians could reverse engineer them and crack Moscow's encryption systems. One of the officers in this unit was the current HUR chief Kryllo Budanov. As a result of the spy bases, yeah, these are tough, man. As a result of the spy bases, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, quote, became the best source of information, signals, and everything else about Russia, a former senior U.S. official told the New York Times. According to the Times, in the run-up to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, one of the heads of Russian intelligence services reported to Russian President Vladimir Putin that the CIA and MI6 control Kiev and were turning the neighboring country into a beachhead for operations against Moscow. Putin has frequently asserted that the overthrow of the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych in 2014 was achieved with the support of the CIA, but the Times investigation dispelled that version, pointing rather to how Putin and his advisors misread a critical dynamic. According to the newspaper, the CIA didn't push its way into Ukraine. U.S. officials were often reluctant to fully engage, fearing that Ukrainian officials could not be trusted and worrying about provoking the Kremlin. So there's a lot there. Number one, whether Putin is correct that the CIA was involved in the coup, they were certainly involved in the aftermath of the coup, and we knew that from the Victoria Nuland phone call that famously leaked, right?
Fuck the EU.
Right, fuck the EU, which meant they were instrumental in creating the post-revolution government, i.e. a government that was hostile to Russia. So not to say it doesn't matter whether they were involved in the coup itself, because that's obviously an important for the historical record. But functionally, as it pertains to post-Maidan revolution relations between Russia and Ukraine, with the question mark of U.S. or CIA involvement, it's not really necessary that they helped overthrow the government. The fact is, the fact that they involved themselves afterwards, gave them a stance that was very hostile to Russia. It's also amazing, given this report, that the original terms to call off the Ukraine war did not involve Kiev whatsoever. Not whatsoever. The original Russian terms were, we want Crimea to be recognized as ours. We want independence for these eastern separatist regions who didn't want to go along with the post-coup Ukrainian government. And we want a neutral Ukraine. So even despite these findings, and according to this report, it seems Putin was made aware, or at least strongly persuaded, that Kiev was working with the CIA in a way that was hostile to his country. The fact that control over Kiev was really not something he was particularly interested in at the beginning of the war just shows you how avoidable the war was in the first place. Even if Kiev was working with American intelligence, he still did not seek to conquer that country. So that is quite the report to come out of the New York Times. Like I said, this is a short summary of it. We'd be here all day if we read the New York Times piece. It's about a 45 to 50-minute read. But that's a good summary from a Ukrainian source. So that's not Kremlin spin, Yeah.
Right. Well, and this is where, anybody who starts trying, like Cornel West did, well, there are a lot of people who don't want to talk about the gangster Putin and what goes on in his country. And hey, man, as far as what goes on in his country, that's none of my business. That is his country. I don't say one way or the other. I honestly don't know enough about it. For the same reason, it's hard to comment on China. It's almost impossible to get information that doesn't represent somebody's agenda, whether the agenda of China or Russia or the agenda of the U.S. State Department. It's almost impossible to find objective reporting on the subject of what's going on inside either of those countries. I don't know. I suspect that the Russian state is repressive. I also know they're torturing Julian Assange to death in the West. So I'm not all that inclined to use it as a basis of moral superiority of Western interests re Russia and Putin. That's all irrelevant. When you're talking about the matter of this war, if the United States thought Mexico was conspiring with Russian intelligence or Chinese intelligence to the level that we considered it a threat, we'd be in there so fast it would make your sombrero spin.
And we would not be litigating territorial disputes near the border. We'd want the whole thing. We'd want the whole thing. Sorry.
We'd have to save Mexico from foreign infiltrators who have misled the Mexican people, right? We'd annex it.
Of course.
We would install a puppet government. There is no fucking way we would allow that next to our border. So whatever you think about Putin or what's going on with Russia, it's completely irrelevant. Was Russia provoked? Yes.
Yeah,
yes, they were provoked.
Yeah.
They were provoked for decades. They were provoked for much longer than I believe, based on our own history, the United States would ever have allowed a provocation like that to go on.
Right. Exactly. And the more you look at this, and this report is just the latest in a series, that is come out since the war started. Like, the more you look at this and think, well, it is the anti-Ukrainian position to have thought that they should have agreed to those 3 terms. Agreeing to those 3 terms would have saved Ukraine. Ukraine has no present right now, and it has no future right now. All the men who are capable of having kids are fucking dead. I mean, the country has been decimated. It was obviously in Ukraine's interest to accept that deal. That was an amazing deal that they were offered. And now that they turned it down because the West tricked this moron president of theirs into thinking he was the Winston Churchill of the 21st century.
It's very heroic.
Yeah. Now they're fucked. They're fucked, and their country is decimated for decades down the line now. It's amazing. And the coverage, you know, I had a thought about this too. Like, when you think of the carnage in Ukraine on the Russian side, and obviously just as sadly on the Ukrainian side, you are talking about devastation and bloodshed that is really of a magnitude that we have not seen in quite some time. And it is just incredible to think how sanitized the coverage of that war has been in the U.S. media. Like, Gaza, you can't say the coverage is sanitized. I mean, it's more biased towards Israel than we would like it to be, obviously. But you are seeing on CNN, we've shown many reports. They'll go into Gaza.
CNN has done surprisingly decent coverage here and there.
Exactly. Here and there. Right. Not as a rule, but here and there. In Ukraine, you got the libs still thinking that Ukraine is on track to win. On track to win. Just an absolute total lie. And a lie told at the expense of hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, it's a horrible tragedy for both countries. Russia's losing a lot of men too, but it's a horrible tragedy for Ukraine. And so these idiots think that what? They're doing Ukraine a favor by trying to get $60 billion more through. For what? It's over. It's done. It's lost.
Well, this was something, I sent this over to you this morning. There wasn't time to do it. So Putin just gave a speech in Russia, partly in response, it seems, to Macron would not rule out sending troops into Ukraine. The Germans wisely slapped that down, at least in regards to their own country, when asked about sending troops in. And Putin said, hey, they have to remember, we have weapons too. And if this gets into that kind of a conflict, it could lead to nuclear war, which could be the end of civilization.
Right. I mean, we were thinking we may have dodged that. We were thinking, okay, the war is lost. It's going to wind down. But it seems like the U.S. is getting more psychotic in its attempts to double down as the war draws closer to its natural end. Right. I mean, it doesn't seem like we're taking the hint that, hey, the right thing to do is to just make a deal. And tragic. I mean, this is the story of every U.S. war since World War II, since after World War II is, you know, and this is what Jeremy Corbyn said at the start of the war. He says all wars end in diplomacy. So why don't we skip the killing part and go right to the talking part? Because it was very obvious in this case that whatever deal you make after the fighting is going to, if you're lucky, resemble very, very closely the deal you had an opportunity to make before the fighting. And so what was all this for? This was for the enrichment of Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and I think more and more, this was about exposing the West to Russia's military powers and wearing them down should there be a conflict with China. Because there's no way, I am sorry, whatever bullshit they're trying to tell us, there is no way the people like the Jake Sullivans and the Anthony Blinkens and the Lloyd Austins, the people who actually know the situation on the ground, there is absolutely no way they think Ukraine has any chance at winning, which means take that off the table. That's not their motive. Their motive has to be something else. Their motive has to be to get eyes on Russia's military and to wear them down so that if there's another world war on another front, Russia is weaker. It's psychotic. It's suicidal. It's anti-human. And this has been, if we step back and take a macro view of this, this is why I say Donald Trump is not a man of peace, but Donald Trump is playing Russian roulette with at least one empty chamber in the gun, because through chance and randomness and chaos, all of which are characteristics of Donald Trump, you might avoid this. Might. It's It's not a guarantee. It's not a likelihood, but it's a possibility. This is the road to hell. These people are psychos. These people are psychos. This is going one way, the wrong way. That's obvious to anyone.
Damn it. He might be a half-bright game show host, but Donald Trump is the only chance this country has, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I absolutely feel that the chances of World War III are somewhat lessened if Donald Trump wins the election, because I can't imagine him saying, you know what, let's commit troops. No. I could definitely imagine a second term of the Democrats, whoever that might be, deciding we simply cannot let the Russians have their way.
Right. That's the way they're signaling right now. That's the way they're sounding right now. They've gotten crazier as reality has set in more.
Yes.
Right? As reality becomes more and more obvious, they become more insane. Right? They don't become more sane as reality gets more obvious. They double down.
I think you're right about the military factor. I think they legit miscalculated about the economics. I think in their arrogance, they legitimately did not realize how much there was a global South and a BRICS and an anti-U.S. movement that would figure out a workaround they would only empower these alternative payment systems.
You're right. I think you're right about that. I do not think they saw coming. They thought Russia's economy was going to tank, and that they were going to be under pressure in the long term to, be more agreeable to whatever it is we wanted, i.e., NATO membership for Ukraine, which they're still talking about. They're still talking about if that's going to be allowed to happen.
In the end, we're undermined by our own capitalist imperatives, because with the whole workaround black market, the way the oil winds around the world, the biggest purchaser of Russian crude is us.
Right.
We're buying their fucking oil because in the end, we're not going to allow the oil prices to go up to what they really would be if you really took Russian oil off the market in the West.
Right. Indeed. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Democrat establishment withdrew McConnell's opponent, Allison Grimes, funds a month before the 2014 election because they wanted McConnell as majority leader. Grimes still got 41% of the vote. Is that true? I remember that race. I do remember that race, but I did not know that they made that last-minute maneuver there. Thank you for that, Sparky. It's got to be a crazy year. It's going to be a crazy year. If you picked one thing to happen, what would it be? Well, what are my predictions? I mean, look, I'm more confident in my assessment that they're going to replace Biden at the convention than I was when I made the guess at the end of our year show. So I guess I'd have to go with that. I think they're going to swap him out. I do.
Madonna and Britney Spears get hitched.
There you go. Sparky, such a shame. CIA trained Ukraine to murder Daria Dugina. Western media used a bad picture, but she was a real babe and a brain to boot. CIA sucks. Thank you, Sparky. MH17 was shot down by a missile with Ukrainian serial numbers, but Western intel and corrupt UN investigators blamed it on Russia. Thank you, Sparky. Kristen, thanks for the $1.99. DC, thanks for the $2. Make Texas Mexico again, says DC. Decimate means to reduce by 10%. We got stats. When did I say decimate? Was that in response to something I said or something you said?
It's technical. You're going back into the origins of the word. Nobody uses it that way anymore.
Did I say the word decimate? I forgot what I said. I don't know what I say on the show.
I don't know.
I just make it up as I go along.
That used to be a way they would impose discipline on military units by killing 10% of them.
All right. We got a couple more super chats. Do we have any more Rumble rants to get to? Yeah, it looks like we have Rumble rant here. We'll get to those after our final segment of the day. We got one more segment. This is a crazy one. This is really wild. So I'm going to toss to Russell in a second, but I just want to set this up with a quick video here. This is an Israeli filmmaker who accepted an award for a documentary at the Berlin Film Festival. And this is an Israeli filmmaker who actually spoke out for peace and equality in his home region. Bastard. At the Berlin Film Festival. So here's the speech he gives when accepting his award.
In front of you now, me and Bassel are the same age.
Sorry.
I want to say we are standing in front of you now. Me and Bassel are the same age. I am Israeli, Bassel is Palestinian. And in 2 days, we will go back to a land where we are not equal. I'm living under a civilian law, and Bassel is under military law. We live 30 minutes from one another, but I have voting rights, and Bassel is not having voting rights. I'm free to move where I want in this land. Bassel is, like millions of Palestinians, locked in the occupied West Bank. This situation of apartheid between us, this inequality, it has to end.
Wow, so there's an Israeli with a real conscience. You know, Russell said there are no liberal Israelis. I mean, obviously, you never say never. There seems to be one. At least he seems to be pretty damn close. That seemed to be a pretty good statement from an Israeli filmmaker. He brings a Palestinian on stage and says, not only do we need peace, but we need equality as well. A lot of the more quote-unquote liberal Israelis don't get to equality. They stop at, well, we need peace. We need a stable status quo.
We need a permanent ceasefire.
Right. They don't actually need to dismantle the apartheid system. Right. This Israeli, much credit to Yuval Abraham, actually goes there, and I'm sure the press really appreciated that. Did they not, Russell?
In Germany.
Yeah.
In Germany, which tried to ban a Roger Waters concert.
Yes. So let's go here.
Israeli filmmaker engulfed in backlash after anti-war speech in Berlin. You know, it's just crazy. I thought this was the kind of thing we like, multiculturalism, right? People all, oh, no, we don't like that, huh? We don't like that.
This is the Washington Post write-up.
An Israeli filmmaker is facing heavy backlash after he used an acceptance speech at a high-profile Berlin awards ceremony to oppose the war in Gaza. Yuval Abraham, whose speech was roundly condemned by German politicians, said he has since received death threats and that his family had fled their home in Israel for safety. Standing beside his Palestinian co-director at the Berlinale Film Festival over the weekend, Abraham, 29, criticized his government's treatment of Palestinians, saying, in 2 days we will go back to a land where we are not equal. We need to call for a ceasefire. Earlier, the co-director, Basil Adra, had said that it was, quote, very hard for me to celebrate when there are tens of thousands of my people being slaughtered and massacred, calling upon Germany to end weapon exports to Israel. In response, German politicians criticized the onstage remarks as, quote, one-sided and blamed the festival's
oh my God.
and blamed the festival's organizers for letting the remarks go unchallenged. Berlin Mayor Kai Wagner tweeted that the remarks were unacceptable and that anti-Semitism has no place in Berlin. This is an Israeli on stage with a Palestinian calling for an end to the slaughter and an end to apartheid and equality. Where is the anti-Semitism?
And you think they'd have seen something like this coming, they wouldn't have been so shocked by this speech, since the film that he won for is a documentary called No Other Land, which is about the brutal tactics of the Israelis against the Palestinian people in the West Bank. So it's about
what
apartheid.
Would you think he would say?
It's about apartheid. What the fuck did you think he was going to say?
Excuse me. No, this is, well, we'll get into it. Yeah. Adding that he expected festival organizers, quote, to ensure that such incidents do not happen again. Yeah. Germany's cultural commissioner, Claudia Roth, said she was working with city officials to review the festival's handling of the incident. Yeah, it doesn't sound scary at all.
We should have given the award to the trans documentary. We don't have a trans documentary we could give the awards to.
I told you we had Dylan Mulvaney would have come and give
your
speech.
Virtue signal to the LGBTQIA plus community. You don't let the anti-apartheid Israeli on the stage.
We had the whole documentary about the Bud Light boycott.
Black Lives Matter. There's nothing from Black Lives Matter didn't submit the films this year.
The whole committee is anti-Semitic. The backlash.
Climate change.
Everybody likes the climate change documentaries. We could have gotten Greta. Greta was going to come. She was getting on her rowboat. The backlash has once again spotlighted modern Germany's hardline approach to criticism of Israel, which has been tested by the increasingly heated atmosphere following Hamas's October 7th attack and Israel's ensuing war. Politicians there regularly say that the nation has a historical responsibility to offer its unflinching support to the Jewish state, calling it a Staatsräson, reason of the state. In a telephone interview Wednesday, Abraham said he had received death threats and hateful messages in response to his speech. Only democracy in the Middle East. As he prepared to board his flight home to Israel, he was contacted by people who threatened to meet him upon arrival at the airport. He has since canceled his flight, saying, "I understood that I can't go back." Abraham and Audra's film titled No Other Land won the Berlinale Documentary Award. In the film, Abraham and Badra document life in a Palestinian village in the occupied West Bank while also examining the way their own relationship as an Israeli and Palestinian of the same age was strained by inequalities.
If this was going to be a problem for you, then why would you give this film the award?
Why would you? Well, okay. It sounds to me like the people who run the film festival wanted to make this statement.
Right.
And then they got government backlash.
Yes.
And now they're trying to make noises because they don't I don't know exactly what powers the German government has to enforce this kind of thing. But it sounds like now they're scared and trying to diffuse the situation.
Right.
It's not like the government officials gave them the award. Right. Abraham said the documentary was intended to prompt debate and that he respected those who disagreed with him, but to demonize us, to devalue the term of anti-Semitism like that, Abraham said. How dare German politicians tell an Israeli whose entire family either survived or was murdered in the Holocaust? Abraham, who describes himself as a Jewish descendant of Holocaust survivors, rejected any suggestion that his remarks at the award show were anti-Semitic. Quote, "We stood on the stage together, an Israeli and a Palestinian, calling for equality, calling for ending the war. The branding of these positions as anti-Semitism by German politicians who are not Jewish," he added, "placed me and my Jewish family in danger."
Thank you. Good for him. And then this gets even worse. I mean, it's just absolutely just from outer space.
Israel's ambassador in Berlin, Ron Prosser, accused Germany's cultural institutions of rolling out the red carpet for anti-Israel activists over the weekend. Quote, "Under the guise of freedom of expression and art, anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric is celebrated," he said in a post on X. In a statement this week, the festival's organizer, Mariette Rissenbeek, said the positions expressed at the award ceremony did not reflect the festival's position.
Fucking coward. What a fucking coward. You gave him the award.
You gave him the award. So
your position, because what he's saying was not unrelated to what the film was about, right?
Well, also, they probably get government funding for this festival. It's not like America where everything is private. These kinds of arts institutions usually get some government money in Europe. We understand the outrage that the statements made by some of the award winners were perceived as too one-sided, and there are always two sides in an apartheid state. And in some cases, they gave too much credibility to the pro-Mandela side in this documentary. We need to hear more from the de Klerk side. And in some cases inappropriate, she said, adding that it would have been more appropriate if award winners and guests offered more differentiated statements on this issue.
Unbelievable. What a fucking coward. You give the guy an award. He goes up there and he articulates the message of the film. It's not like he went up there and pulled something out of his ass. He didn't go up there and say, "We think chorizo is better than bratwurst." It's not like that. Like, you could have definitely anticipated he was going to say something like this. And now you say, well, his positions don't necessarily reflect ours. So then why'd he win the award? Why'd you give him the stand up for what you actually believe in such severe times? No, you backtrack and say, well, no, we wash our hands of it. Just pathetic. Unbelievable.
Well, and it just shows, okay, I think we can all understand why Germany is locked in a kind of pathological mind fuck around all this. Obviously, right? If you deal with German people and you even bring up the Nazis, they turn beet red. You know, it is just, even to this day, it is a very hard thing for them to address and deal with and process. So they decided that part of how they're going to pay their penance is to be fanatically pro-Israel and to absolutely, without question, swallow the premise that Zionism and Judaism are synonymous. And so to speak against Zionism is to be anti-Semitic, which will absolutely not be permitted because of their jackboots phase. But they need to grow beyond that, because this is the kind of absurdity that standard creates. The standard should be, never again shall we be complicit in genocide. Never again shall we be complicit in crimes against humanity. Because in your doctrinaire effort to make amends for your horrific historical crimes, you are repeating them.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's very, very well said. And in the case of this, even all paranoia being what it is about being perceived as anti-Semitic, the filmmaker is an Israeli filmmaker. Like, you are giving voice to different perspectives. What does she say there? If award winners and guests offered more differentiated sentiments, more differentiated statements on this issue, that is a differentiated statement. He's an Israeli articulating a minority position within Israel, a quite noble minority position within Israel. That guy is a much better spokesperson for Israel than 99% of the people in Israel. You should want to elevate that voice. You should want to elevate that voice. Of
course. And this, do you know how many people we get from the Arab world thanking us for showing them that not all Jews believe this?
Right, exactly.
And not all Jews are Zionists.
Right, so there's your opportunity right there. And you took it, and it worked out great, and then you were bullied into backtracking it. And how that became a controversy just shows you how sick the media coverage of this is, and how racist it is, how unbelievably racist it is, that a guy goes up there with a Palestinian preaching peace and equality, and that's a problem. Right. That's a problem. And the American media gives validity to the idea that that's controversial and that that's a problem.
Right. The story should be, what the fuck is wrong with German people?
Right. What the fuck is wrong with you? The fuck is wrong with you for giving them a hard time?
There's like a white man made a film with a black man in the Jim Crow South and gave a speech at the Academy Awards about the fact that when they go home, they're unequal.
Yeah, exactly right. Just amazing. All right, let's take some super chats before we wrap today. Thank you all for being here. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button over on Rumble. Just my opinion. Thanks for the $6.99. We're just seeing the U.S. business model from World War II never stopped for 1 minute. Thank you.
Yeah. Eisenhower warned us.
Yep. Dave Dillarai, thank you for the $25. That's very generous of you. Middle East Observer on X and Electronic Intifada's John Elmer say the airdrops of aid are just PR for Arab countries' population. Meanwhile, hundreds of aid trucks are waiting at the Egyptian border. No impact on starvation plan. I caught a little of Jimmy's live stream yesterday. They did a story. I saw something about how there was some kind of rally at the border to block the aid trucks from getting in. I don't know if that's what you're referencing, Dave, but yeah.
Pretty on the Egyptian side?
I believe so. I forget, but right on the border. It could have been on the Egyptian side. That's what it would have to be, right? Wouldn't it have to be?
I would imagine.
Yeah. Here we go. Navalny was Juan Guaido of Russia, says Sparky. He was a nobody in Russia. He outlived his usefulness to the West. Worth more as fake martyr, and his West-sponsored lawyer dropped off meds 2 days prior to death. Interesting to look into that. Thank you, Sparky. Build a better world with bricks. Denazify Israel. Kuznetsky Bassane. It's so typically American to allow intel and political psychos who know nothing about Russia and its history to make world-scale decisions. Yes, that is a good point. It is typically American. Free Assange, says Sparky. Thank you for the $5. Randy Trestrail, thank you for that donation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's go to a Rumble rant here. Then own him. Okay. AMLO published Univision reporter's phone number after she doxed his family and falsely accused him of narco trafficking. Then he owned MSM for crying about privacy and betraying Assange. Respect, Mexico. Thank you for that. Shinabilly, thanks for the $2. Chorizo is definitely better than bratwurst. I agree. I like chorizo.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's where it's at right there. Warskill, thanks for the $5. Germany, kiss ass forever. Maybe they'll forget the sacks of gold teeth locked up in the Alps. Uncommon Sense 23, app the content. That is all. What do you mean, app the content?
Well, that's a new bat, right?
Are you asking us to make a Due Dissidents app? We should make an app. Maybe Jake knows how to make an app. That would be fun.
He might know how to make an app.
Maybe. You can sing War Pigs by Black Sabbath like Deck the Halls, says Eat Hot Chip, and lie. Thank you very much.
Generals gathered in their masses.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you can.
You could. Yeah, good observation. Absolutely. All right, folks, that is our show this morning. We thank you all very, very much for being here. We appreciate you all very much. It's a busy week for us. This is our final week as a three show a week podcast.
Damn.
So starting next week, since Russ is back from Europe and over the jet lag and everything, we're going to be on 4 days a week. So it is highly recommended that you join our Substack. You can join for free. You don't have to join as a paid member. If you could join as a paid member, that's amazing. That's lovely. That keeps us going. If you join our Substack for free, you get audio podcast versions of all of our live streams. You also get access to our articles when we drop them, which now that we're back, I think in a rhythm, we'll be able to write a little bit more again. We started and then we kind of had a slow period, but we're going to try and pump out articles.
Ellen's going to start giving us articles.
Oh, awesome. Oh, that would be great. I would love that. Absolutely, Ellen, for sure. But join for free. You get the articles, you get the audio podcast versions of the live streams, and most importantly now you get access to our newsletter where we send you alerts when and where we're going to be going live. So we're adding a fourth stream. That fourth stream looks like we're going to start out next week. Is going to be Wednesday in the early to mid-afternoon. We're going to be figuring out a time slot that works for that fourth live stream. But it's important that you join our Substack because that'll give you access to our newsletter. So that'll tell you when we're going live and where we're going live. So Sunday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday morning, those are the regularly scheduled live streams. Those are not changing. We're going to figure out a good time slot for this fourth stream. So not only will the times vary for the first few weeks as we're ironing it out, but the location could very well vary. Some of these fourth streams are going to be uncensored Rumble exclusive live streams. And so it's very important that you subscribe to our Rumble channel and follow us there if you are not already. All right. So that's rumble.com/Due Dissidents. I'll put that up here on the screen. Sorry. So you're going to want to follow us there, but you're also going to want to join the Substack, duedissidents.substack.com, because there's going to be some shows where there'll be Rumble only, and we'll send out the email the morning of. We have 3,000 people on our Substack email list right now, which is amazing. But the more we have there, the more people will be alert to when and where we're going live. All right, because there will be some Rumble exclusive streams in the future, no doubt about that. So make sure you're in the loop. Go to duedissidents.substack.com and sign up for free. Like I said, if you can't sign up as a paid member, sign up for free. That keeps you in the loop as to what's going on with our live stream schedule. But we are going to be off for a couple of days and back here on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That is when we will see you all again next. Thanks for a great week. It was a fun week with you all. We hope you all enjoy the next couple of days, and we will see you back here on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for today.
My body doesn't know what fucking time zone I'm in at this point.
Yeah, Russell's got to get his internal clock oriented. So we'll have a couple days to do that, and then we'll see you guys again Sunday night. Thank you very much for this morning. It was a pleasure. We will see you next time. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.